authentically peculiar, authentically peculiar, authentically peculiar.
Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Welcome back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I am super excited because y'all know I got another one of my babies, not a bio baby, but still one of my babies with me here today. And I'm excited because I know so many licensed professional counselors that are younger than me, which is beautiful for me because, y'all old folks, y'all don't want no therapy. But the new people, the young people, they're saying, let me be whole, let me be healthy, let me live a holistic life. This is Starre Cannon. She is a licensed professional counselor. And get this, because I need you all to check in with her, a wellness coach, holistic wellness. So she's not trying to get you into a whole bunch of over-the-counter products. We're talking about wellness from the rooter to the tutor. You got that? Okay. She has been working with underserved communities in the mental health field for more than 11 years. She used holistic wellness practices to help people find balance between their mental, physical, and spiritual health. She empowers her clients to heal themselves as a whole and to unlock their full potential. Sounds like a little authentic living to me, and live in their power. Through a holistic and collaborative approach, she guides her clients to prioritizing their overall well-being and their love for their self. Her goal is to create a community dedicated to holistic healing, empowerment, and wellness. It is a safe space to be, to grow, and to learn to love themselves in an authentic manner. I invited Starre on because I live vicariously through her self-care, through her love of travel, embracing the environment, and her natural love for self. Welcome aboard, my baby. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's just always an honor just to be a part of these experiences and to, of course, like support your podcast, but just also have these real essential conversations, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your yes. I can promise you, everybody doesn't say yes, and I'm so excited that you said yes. So we're going to get into it. Everyone right now is talking about self-care, self-love, almost like it's a fad. Can you explain why it's so essential to not only operate in self-love, but to operate in self-care as well?
Yeah, it's interesting because yeah, you can say self-love and self-care is trending, but I would say it's about time,
It
right?
is.
I think we live in a society, especially in America, where we don't, and I think a lot of people learned this during the pandemic, right? How much we neglect ourselves and in a real in-depth way, right? Like we may rely on just very one particular coping skill. Like for some people, that's like socializing. For some people, that's going to the gym. For some people, that may be eating, right? Like there's different things that you may rely on that to cope. But when it comes to self-love and self-care, which for me, self-care is just it's an act of self-love, right?
Yes.
Self-love is so essential because it everything that you do stems from it, right? Is your relationship with yourself is what then dictates how you interact with everyone else, right? Like that can your romantic partners, your coworkers, your friends, your family, it all extends from the relationship that you have with yourself. But if you're not loving yourself, and that can look very different, right? For different people, but if you're not loving yourself and pouring the same energy and effort into yourself as you do other people, then that leads to burnout. That leads to psychotic breakdowns for some people. That leads to depression. That leads to anxiety, right? Like getting into this people pleasing
Yes.
patterns and habits, and that becomes toxic. And then you wonder, because you're spending so much time filling everyone else's cup up, why yours is always so empty, right?
And then
And
get
so
mad.
yeah,
They get
yeah,
mad. It's like
right.
nobody sees me. Well, you sold yourself out.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And so it's one of those things where it's like no one's really responsible for you but you. You know, at the end of the day, like we can only be our happiness is our own responsibility. And
Period.
if we're not taking care of ourselves,
Mhm.
and if we're not, and, you know, and self-care looks different for everyone. For me, I'm not the nails, hair done type person.
Mhm.
That's just
Mhm.
not that's not self-care. It doesn't fulfill me in the same way. That almost
Right.
feels like a task. For me, it's like, yeah, going and getting like a therapeutic massage, or going to therapy myself, right?
Mhm.
Going out in nature, that's probably like my number one way that I ground and connect, you know?
Right.
And so it looks different for everyone. It's all
Mhm.
about what uniquely for you fills
Mhm.
your cup up, what makes you feel whole and fulfilled, and what makes you feel replenished when your
Yes.
energy is drained, you know? And so it's really essential to our day to day, because if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do, you're pouring out to someone else, and then you go on and the whole week goes by and you're giving to your partner, you're giving to your spouse, you're giving to the kids, you're giving to your job, you're giving to every single thing
Mhm.
outside of yourself, all this energy, all this effort, to the dog, to the cat, to whatever, you know,
Right.
and you're left with nothing. Your cup is like all the way empty, you know, and it's so empty. And then you're wondering why you feel so taken advantage of sometimes. You're so depleted, and you don't have the energy to do anything for yourself, and even and really to know yourself,
Mhm.
right? Taking that time to get to know yourself and spend time with yourself and connect with the divine that lives within you, right?
Yes.
So we really talk about self-love, and sorry, because I could get on this, like
Well,
talk
you
about
know,
this.
we could do this.
We could talk about this all day, of course, but to really love yourself, because
Mhm.
it can sound very self-involved at times, right? But to really love yourself is to really love that
Mhm.
divinity that lives within you, the God that lives within you, right? And to tap within that and feel yourself spiritually
Mhm.
in that way. And then of course, you know, we're all interconnected. We're complex beings. So, you know, our mind, our bodies, and our spirits are just are very interconnected. So when you do for one,
Mhm.
and are with intention and, like, you know, making healthy choices, then you're ultimately healing the whole self.
Absolutely. You know, I was sitting there thinking, I've been sharing with people for the better part of this year that we were bamboozled here in Western
Hmm.
civilization about what
Absolutely.
selfishness is. We were lied to
Hmm.
because we were told that we were selfish if we prioritize ourselves. We were selfish if
Hmm.
we didn't take other people into consideration. We were selfish by caring for others and not for ourselves, you know, or caring for ourselves and not
Hmm.
for others. And I always use the airlines safety regulations. You got to put the oxygen on yourself first
Yes,
before you can help someone else. What are your thoughts
absolutely.
about how Western civilization has really caused people to think that they're selfish versus
Mm.
encouraging selflessness?
Mm. Yeah, that is a real that's a real padded one, because it's interesting, because right, westernized civilization, we live in a civilization that focus on the individual, right?
Mhm.
Individualism as opposed
Supposedly.
to collectivism, supposedly,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Well, we focus on the individual, but we're conditioned to focus on the individual in selfish ways, and
Mhm.
self-love is not one of them, right?
Exactly.
So when we talk about selfish ways, as far as like individualism, as far as in more toxic ways, right? So
Mhm.
uh you know, focusing on money and working and working and
Mhm.
working and working and working
Capitalism.
and building for yourself, right? Like, you know, we're in a capitalistic society, so it's always constant, like, how much more can I produce, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And we're not taught that rest is productive. We're not taught that taking care of yourself and sitting outside in silence and nature and just listening to the birds and
Right.
the crickets, you know,
Mhm.
that is a way to replenish yourself. That is productive as well. And so and when people think of self-love or they think about self-care, they hear the word self, and of course they think selfishness, right? Instead of think about when you feel at your best and when you're at the top of your game and you're feeling 100% whole, how much more energy you do have to help other people, right? How much more you do have, right? Because your cup is full and you're letting it overflow. All of that is something you're able to give back and pour into other people, right? As opposed to things that in the Western society oftentimes, what we're more conditioned to do is to do things to make more money, to do things to materialize things, which making money, being successful it's not a bad thing. It's just when that's your only focus and you're not thinking about
balance.
It's a balance. It's all about finding balance. And if you don't find that balance with caring for yourself and putting that effort and energy and love, like just as we have no issue, especially women, especially women of color, if I really want to break that down, we have no issue with pouring into everyone else and doing for everyone else. We have no issue with that. But it is something that we have been, like you said, bamboozled to think that we don't deserve that for ourselves, or looking outside of ourselves externally and thinking someone else is responsible for doing that for us. And that's just not the way these things go, right? And so that I would say is the biggest thing. I think a lot of different messages were received. I would say, again, especially with women, were a lot of messages that were given. Because I do notice that with men, they don't struggle with self-care as much.
Right.
I remember when Michelle Obama did an interview on Netflix, and she said when she had her kids and she was just like pouring everything into them and like not even doing anything for herself. She was like, Barack got up every day and went to the gym. He got up every day and did what he needed to do, because it's a programming and conditioning. To think like, okay, just because we're nurturers naturally, like, oh, you need to always be nurturing for other people. No, you need to nurture yourself first and foremost. And then give from that.
Exactly. If you don't know how to love you, how can you expect others to love you if you don't know how to treat you and take care of yourself? So many women fall into that trap of, if I just do enough, somebody will love me. If I do enough, somebody will see me. If I do enough, someone to care for me. And then they're heartbroken. That doesn't come back. And then their bodies are broken.
Exactly.
Here comes anxiety, depression, diabetes, high blood pressure, difficulty with menstrual cycle. All of that stuff is associated with not knowing or seeing you. And not giving yourself permission to love you or care about you.
Exactly.
What are some ways that you've seen that individuals have had difficulty breaking away to actually offer themselves self-love? How does that show up?
As far as breaking away from romantic relationships or breaking away from people pleasing in general?
Yeah, just people pleasing, because if I'm a people please in my personal life, I'm a people please in my romantic life, I'm a people please in my work life, I'm a people please in my kids' life. It just never stops.
Yeah. So it shows up in general. It shows up there's always, and it shows up differently, but in a general context of things, it's a limiting belief.
Yeah.
There's some type of limiting belief that is causing you to do for others, right? So a lot of the people pleasing comes from this place of, I don't want to disappoint someone else, and I don't want to be disappointed, right? So it's like this double-edged sword at times, because again, everything stems from our relationship with ourselves, right? So it's like, oh, well, I wouldn't want someone to disappoint me, so I'm going to do this. But oftentimes, a lot of things that we do for other people, it is on a level of conditional love, right? Does get tied to expectations of, oh, well, I did all of this for you, right? So many women who sacrifice and make these compromises for the success of their spouses, right? Like staying at home, taking care of the kids, not getting that recognition, not getting the appreciation they deserve. And then it turns into this, that's where, they become empty nesters, and what happens?
Mhm.
All that resentment is built up. All that
They get
resentment is built
divorced
up.
at 50, 60, 70 years
Yes,
old.
yes,
They're
yes.
finding themselves. The husbands are like, what did I do?
Going on.
Not having a voice all of those
Mhm.
years, not feeling sufficient, sometimes not even giving the love and acknowledgement from their children is
Yes,
breaking for them.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
it's so
absolutely.
sad to see that society created this.
Yes, yes. And it's a programming, right? So
Yes.
you can break from it once you
Mhm.
tap into who you are and remembering
Mhm.
who you are and what you deserve, right? So as as children of the divine, right? As children of God, like we deserve to be loved, right? On our and love
Created.
ourselves. Yes.
And that's, I think, that where people, I try not to get into the spiritual aspect too often because
Hmm.
folks get on my nerves. I have a T-shirt that says I love God, but his folks really can get on my nerves because sometimes you become so conditioned
Hmm.
religion that you forget about the importance of the relationship with the creator, with the
Absolutely.
divine, with God, in this whole battle of why are you calling God the universe? Why are you calling, because
Hmm.
what else is it?
Right,
You
right.
know,
If God
and
isn't the
so,
universe, what is God? Right.
and I'm sitting there going, we put these limitations out there because it's
Hmm.
a way for us to be enslaved to these conditioned thoughts.
Absolutely,
Breaking
absolutely.
away from that enslavement, one of the things I want to find out from you on breaking away from that enslavement, what drove your interest and
Mhm.
self-care and self-love? I call you the guru because I sit back and watch all this stuff come from holistic living, holistic coaching, and it's like, oh no, she's a guru. She's got this thing worked out. So what actually got you interested in saying, I don't want to be in the box and I no longer want
Yeah.
to run on the wheel. I'm free because the divine freed me. Tell me
Yes.
about that.
So yeah, definitely just piggybacking on what you're saying as far as like just touching a little bit on what you stated as far as like getting caught up in the semantics of the word, right?
Mhm.
Ultimately, if we think of it, I think most religions across the board can agree that like treating yourself as you would treat somebody else, right? Like, or treating someone else as you would treat yourself, right? Or your
Mhm.
neighbor, loving that neighbor. That is something that's taught across all religions. But then also, right? Because really, at the end of the day, when I think of God, I think God is love, you know? And I think of love is the foundation. So this also ties into my interest, right? And how I got into this.
Uh-huh.
Love is the most powerful and the one of the only most like true authentic emotions that there is, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because everything else usually is fear based. It's love and fear. It's pretty much like any negative emotion,
Everything
which I don't like
stems
to
off
say
of those 2. Mhm.
comes off of those two. And I don't even like to even label emotions as negative anymore because ultimately we're as complex human beings. We're gonna feel a range of things.
Mhm.
And and they are to teach us something about ourselves, right? Like if I'm hungry and I'm starting to have hunger pains and I'm getting a little hangry, that's telling me that I need to go eat, right? Like
Yes.
there's certain things that are uncomfortable
Mhm.
um, that
Mm.
cause us to go and either find comfort or find solace or find peace, right? And so speaking into that, how I found this path or the path found me, I guess you can say,
Mhm.
is through the darkness, right? Is through
Mm.
my own battles with depression, right? My
Mhm.
own battles with burnout, giving
Mm.
and giving and giving to my clients, to my family, being the rock in my family, being the
Mm.
strong one, right? And I say that in quotations for those who aren't watching the YouTube
Get
channel, right?
delivered from the strong one.
Yes, really that like I'm releasing this idea that I have to be responsible for everybody else.
Mhm.
Releasing this idea that I owe anyone anything else, right? Releasing this, not even idea, these limiting beliefs is what they are. I got to a point where I felt like I was hopeless and helpless and I had no
Mm.
one to turn to, right? And
Wow.
so again, right, that's why not labeling emotions as a negative. I had to go through the darkness to find my light.
Yes.
And my light was loving myself, right? Like finding ways to actually pour into myself and actually honoring what I need and prioritizing what I need and not expecting someone else to do that for me, right? Because that didn't work, you know. That was always when you expectations will always lead to disappointment ultimately, right? And the only true person that you can control or that you can expect anything from is yourself. And
Exactly.
so for me, I had to tap into the true source that you, like I said, lives within me, the divine, like, and tap into spiritually, tap into and emotionally, mentally, physically, right? Tap into that strength because I didn't have anywhere else to pull from. And when I
Right.
realized the power that lies within us, because oftentimes when you talked about what does that look like when someone is not loving themselves, it looks like disempowerment. You know,
Yes.
it looks like disempowerment. It looks like I think that if I do these things, I'll get these things. It's or I have to do this in order to get this. I have to sleep with this man in order to feel loved. I have to, you know, post all these different things on social media in order to get likes. I have to, it's always looking for something outside of yourself filled when, and then you wonder why you end up feeling so empty at the end of the day, right? Because you're looking in the wrong places, right? Like looking everywhere outside of you to fill you up and to love you and to replenish you, when really what's in you, right, is not just you, like on a mental level, your mind, because your mind can play a lot of tricks on you, right? And can feed into a lot of fears. It's tapping back in, like I said, into that divine, into the God, into the cosmos, right? Some people say the cosmos exists within them. However you were, I don't get caught up on semantics either. It's however, whatever your own personal connection is, and what you want to refer to as your higher power is all that matters. But at the end of the day, we have a highest self within us. Right. We have our highest selves. And when I think about loving myself, when I think about, you know, in this interest, like, and I've found my own healing through, and I'm still on this journey, of course, it's a never ending one, but my own healing through loving myself. And working with clients and, you know, doing therapy and working in this field, I'm like, what's lacking? And every single time the answer that came back up was love.
Yeah.
Oh, is what's lacking. Like, and it's that simple. Like, I hate it. Seems to be oversimplified, but it's not. What's lacking oftentimes is love authentically and deeply, right? Authentic love, right? Not this false love, not this
Not the
cancel culture
facade
love.
of
Yeah,
love.
not this facade, not this, oh, you'll get the you if you know, not this conditional love.
Right.
Unconditional
Love
love.
me in my naturalness, because I'm
Yes,
going to show you that I love me in my naturalness. And
absolutely.
therefore, I extend to you the grace to love me in my naturalness. See, oftentimes I think that people put out there this sticker, this tag to pay for the
This
love.
mask.
And yeah, it comes from, especially with social media, these likes and the follows and all of those different things. And then you see this brokenness that comes out from people wishing, you know, that they had some love, but most times they don't even know how to express the love that they need. And so,
Right.
you know, and so when you're asking, I know when I ask clients, and I've said this in quite a few of the episodes, my first homework assignment to clients is writing a love letter to themselves. I get crying, I get cussing, I get I hate you, Marcia, all those things. But when it boils down to it, it takes them usually 3 weeks for them to really get it together and write it. But what they recognize is, I didn't know me enough to love me.
Right.
And you talked about going through that journey, having to actually get to know yourself, to battle through depression, to battle through anxiety, to battle through, and I tell people all the time, when I was younger, I had horrible self-esteem. Couldn't tell it because I learned how to mask it, like so many people do. But I battled with value and worth in seeing myself, because here's the other thing. And tell me your thoughts about this. We keep seeing ourselves through other people's eyes instead of our own.
Yes.
What's your thoughts
I was
about
just
it?
about to say that. I was just actually about to say that. And that's the thing. And so we battle with knowing ourselves because we don't spend time with ourselves, right? A
That
lot of
part.
people don't spend time with themselves. If you go through anyone, like an average person's day,
Mm-hmm.
it is filled with distractions.
Mm-hmm.
It is filled with, whether it be being surrounded by people or things, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's Netflix and chilling, whether it's going to some party, whether it's being at work and being engulfed in that, whether it's scrolling on social media, it is like, if you really broke down your day, and that's sometimes what I do with clients, is like, tell me your daily routine. What do you do within a day? How do you spend your day? How do you spend your time? And I also definitely do the love letters, or the letters to a certain age of their inner child, right? Because oftentimes the wounds that we battle with are from our inner child wounds, right? Things that may have happened from when we were kids, and we carry it with us for a very long time, and then it starts to manifest into other things and all these other habits and behaviors. But distractions, right? And the lack of being in solitude.
That part.
When you can't spend time with yourself, how would you ever really know yourself, right? Like, if you can't spend time and really just as an observer, just like watch your thoughts, like, and think about and tap into what it is that you want, who it is that you feel like you are, and what your purpose is, which can change. We are constantly evolving, but really taking that time to self-reflect, very hard to gain awareness without that. If you're not taking that time with yourself, it's very hard to gain awareness of who you are, what you want, how you're feeling, and let alone like really tapping into like those wounds and trying to decipher and figure out like what is it that's causing this pain? Where is this coming from, right? Where is this trigger coming from? Like, and we often are looking, of course, in this microwave society now, looking for a quick fix. Oh, I just want a pill, right? I just want a pill. I just want plastic surgery. I just want the boyfriend. I just want the house. I just want the wife. I just want the new car. We're looking for all these material things to fill ourselves, and that's something that'll never make us feel whole. Hence why, as you and I know from working on the crisis line together, we talk to many people who, or we know of many people who seem to have a lot materialistically, right? But
It's so
are
broken.
bankrupt spiritually. Absolutely bankrupt spiritually, emotionally, completely bankrupt.
Yeah.
And because we spend so much time feeding so many aspects of ourselves, but not our spirits, right?
Or our mental. We don't
Or our mental,
we don't do the spirit, and we don't do the mental, which leaves us in a deficit. It's like a bank withdrawal. You mentioned purpose, and that's all of my whole forte. People often ask me about, how do I identify my purpose? And my response is, stop talking. So as you mentioned that place of solitude, as you mentioned the need to learn yourself, learning your voice, that's when it becomes viable. The universe, the divine, God is not going to fight against the noise in your head.
Exactly.
You have got to give yourself that permission to be quiet, stop the comparison, because here's what I know for true, and you tell me what your thoughts of this. We can do whatever we want to on the camera. We have absolutely no idea what's happening behind the scenes with people. I got to filter up. You got to filter up. They can't tell you what my house looks like behind me. I can't tell you what your house looks like, but we will take that thing that we see in our face and count it as gold. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that I would say that's the biggest downside of social media, right? Is we're constantly, and I call it like highlights, right? And false reality. It's not real. There's nothing about what happens on there as real. Like even, because people are not
I call it scripted.
very scripted. It's very scripted because it's very, you have to be very intentional and very strategic about what you put out there, right? But even in those moments where, like you said, right, like those things that happen behind closed doors, those shadow sides of ourselves, right? So when people hear self-love and they do think of self-care, they do think of the pampering, they do think of, no, self-love is really, again, like digging in and finding ways to love yourself unconditionally as you would your child, right? As you would, as God loves us, right? And really tapping into who you are outside, and ridding of all those distractions and listening to your own voice, right? So of course I hear a lot of clients tell me all the time, oh, meditation is so hard, I can't meditate, my mind's constantly racing. That's natural for your mind to constantly race, right?
Which
It's
is what
about
we're trying to
sitting.
stop.
Right. Yeah. And don't even try to stop it, because it's not going to stop. Right. You're going to be thinking. Observe those thoughts. Sit back and observe. What are you thinking without the noise of what everyone else is saying, without the comparison, without the, such and such just went on this trip, and such has this happy marriage, and you don't know what's going on in these people's lives, right? Like I see it all the time that like outside, people are wearing masks constantly.
And not for COVID's sake.
No, and not for COVID's sake. We are talking about those masks that we use, that our ego uses oftentimes to protect us, right? Those sides of ourselves that we're ashamed of, right? So loving yourself is embracing all of that. It's embracing the mistakes, any regrets, the shadows of yourself, whether it be that you might have a tendency to be very controlling. You might have a tendency to sometimes not know your worthiness, and then that ends up that ends up manifesting into a lot of different things, as far as like
abuse, it could be
yes,
sexual addiction, food addiction, anxiety. It could be just a barrage of things that come forward to try to be settled when you don't love yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just completely agreeing. And yeah, it's really when you rid of the noise, the unnecessary noise of like I said, like social media, of your friends, of your family, because some people don't, even if you take social media out of it, right? There's a lot of distractions just in our day-to-day life, as far as like what our boss tells us we should do, what our parents are saying, like, oh, you should be a doctor, you should be this, you should be a lawyer, you should be doing this with your life. Oh, and looking for advice from people who aren't even happy themselves, right? Looking for advice and looking for guidance from people who really don't even know how to do these things themselves, right? And so, that has definitely been that's definitely just a battle, and something that I really work on clients with, is just really helping them find their own voice and what they truly want outside of what they've been conditioned to think they want and been taught, right? Because fears are taught. You learn them. You don't come into this world fearing. If you watch a child, you will see every child's movements and how they are taught to fear certain things, right? And then it of course just piles up and it piles up. But if you watch a child, or if you watch animals, you can see their instincts, you can see their intuition, and you can see that they're tapped into the divine, into God and the universe, and they let things flow in a way that we have a hard time doing.
Absolutely. I know that you have a passport filled with travel because nature and water calls us. I mean, our likelihood, we're Virgos, so shout out to Virgos.
Earth signs.
Exactly. We fall back into the earth. We snatch up as much water as we can as well. What would be some things, because I know right now in society, we put a lot of instances on pampering for self-care. But what would be some things that people could actually bring into place who can't go buy those products, who can't
Right.
take a trip, right? Because everybody don't have the money to do that. What are some common sense things, and I hate to say common sense, but some simplistic things that they can do to operate in places of self-care and self-love around their homes?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because that is something that comes up often. And yeah, everyone's not able and in that position. And as a Virgo as well, I like to save money. So I am also always thinking of different ways to yeah, care for myself without always traveling. So I would say number one, what I do with a lot of my clients is like tell them to just go to a park.
Go to
Go
a
to a park.
park.
Go to a park. Sometimes go in their backyard, of course, if they have a green space. But if they don't, go to a park or even walk in your neighborhood. Of course, like living in Georgia, there's a lot of trees, but go somewhere where there's nature,
Yeah.
right? And this could be a little lake nearby, it could be a park, and walk around. And I have them do what's called a color walk. So to practice mindfulness, right? So where you pick a color that you want to focus on. Of course, you don't want to pick a color that's too
It's
like a
not
neon
green. We don't
yellow.
want green. We don't want brown.
Yeah,
Or
right.
blue, because
Or
we got the
just
whole sky.
or blue. Exactly. Or colors that are like maybe extremely hard to find, like a neon yellow or something, right? But pick a color and then walk and just focus on see if you can find that color as you're walking, right? But then, and then for some people, just also like as you're walking, just like thinking about nature, because nature teaches us so much about how to live, right? And just walking and thinking of things that you're grateful for and just really being distracted, of course, like putting your phone on do not disturb or no phone at all, not taking pictures, not getting caught up in that, just really taking in all that you see. And that can very powerful exercise within like 10 minutes you can do, right? Another one is journaling. Journaling is very, very powerful. And journaling can be from, finding free prompts online or just literally like writing out your thoughts. Literally, like, because what I find with a lot of clients and a lot of people in general is there's a lot of things that we suppress and a lot of things that we have a tendency to not release, and releasing is so important, it's so powerful. And then you wonder why you're like holding on to grudges or holding on to past things that have happened and holding on to all these things that you cannot change. Find a way to release that. And so there's releasing exercises that I do as far as like literally writing out every single thing you want to get out of your life and then burning that paper or ripping it up.
That's like
That's
one
a
of my
huge,
favorite.
definitely one of my favorites. So powerful, and so simple.
I call
so
it
powerful.
spiritual regurgitation. Let's regurgitate the stuff that's in your spirit. It doesn't have to
get it out.
And helping people to understand journaling is not about perfection. It's not about following these steps. It's about getting it out so that it can be released. And I used to just say, listen, you didn't create the universe. You weren't even part of why you're here. Why not give it back?
Right.
Why carry that? So I love the journal. Well, I created a whole journal. So I love the journaling aspect. What are some other things that you think can be helpful for others?
So journaling, nature walk, sometimes just like coloring, like tapping into your inner child is huge. That's something that I'm big on and something that I've really been tapped into because I grew up very parentified, and for people who don't know what that is, just very like being very responsible at a very young age, on my own since I was 17. And so I feel like I neglect my inner child a lot and I don't play as much as like I should. And we think we're adults. It's like, I got too much to do. I got bills to pay. You still need to play. Like you are still, you still need to incorporate play and do things that bring joy and like help you smile. And so sometimes just even being around kids that you'll naturally get pulled into that. But even if that's not an option, then definitely like thinking about something you really used to love to do when you were a kid and go do that. Go swimming, go play soccer in the park, go
turn some music on and dance.
Turn some music on and dancing.
Listen, I can't dance because I don't have no rhythm, but I got a vinyl player and some albums and we get
it. Yes. Dancing is a very powerful release. Dancing is a very and that's a holistic one because you're listening to music, and usually the music that makes you dance is very positive. It is uplifting. It has a certain rhythm, a certain frequency that speaks to your chakras, right? And then
Yeah.
you're dancing, you're moving and you're releasing. And when you move, right, because our bodies are so much made of water, we are 78% water. That is something that helps. Getting out into the sun and grounding your feet in the grass or in
Yes.
on nature, that is scientifically and of course holistically very powerful to take your shoes off, of course be safe, go into a space where there's nothing on the ground and walk in the bare grass, walk on the bare dirt, walk in the sand, connect with nature. And your feet literally have so many not even just the nerve endings. I think a lot of people know that, but the electromagnetic field of the earth is able to come up through your feet, right, and completely recharge your body. So that's a big one.
What about affirmations?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. It's the things that are like the most simple that I'm forgetting, right? Dancing, affirmations. Affirmations are the most simple yet powerful um things you can do. Of course, with affirmations, the trick is, of course, saying it to a point where you feel it, but as I tell my clients all the time, a belief is just a thought that you've repeated over and over. Right.
Exactly.
And so if you're not, and we have so many beliefs, like limiting beliefs, because we've repeated them over and over. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't do that. I can't do this. But then when it comes to affirmations, it's a struggle because you're affirming the opposite. You're affirming your power, really. You're affirming what you can be and who you are. But if you repeat that enough, right, and you really tap into that and you start to really embody that feeling, you will become the very thing you're affirming, just like you've become the very thing that you've been affirming all this time that may not be working out it's not speaking to your high self, and so affirmations are that's the first thing I probably do with clients is definitely talk about what does your self-talk look like? What do you say to yourself?
Exactly.
And
I
because
usually have
oftentimes
clients doing it breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Whatever you come up with those first 10 affirmations, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, before you eat, affirm yourself. I'm a huge proponent of cheerleading, getting the mirror, applauding yourself, congratulating yourself, and really saying the good stuff to you. Because most people get in the mirror and they will do their hair, brush their teeth, and then they criticize. Oh, you don't look good in that. Oh, well, why not? Where is that coming from? All of that negativity has a foundation from somewhere, usually in childhood where people never affirmed you and your place and things of that nature. Well, we have to change that.
Yes, you got to take your power back from that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we often get disempowered. And if it's not at home with our families, right? Because, you get teased for all kinds of stuff, your cousins, your sisters, your siblings, whatever. And then, then sometimes like that happens in high school, and then you get older and then you wonder why, like, where'd you get this low self-esteem from? Well, because you were believing what everyone else is telling you instead of like really, really changing that for yourself. But definitely taking your power back and saying like, this is who I am, and I am always at all times enough. I am always at all times worthy of love. I am always and at all times supported by God, the higher power, by the universe, right? And it's these things, those main foundational things stem usually, like I said, oftentimes from a lack of loving ourselves authentically, right? Even when, there's been times, of course, in COVID, during pandemic, we all gained weight. Like, I don't know a person who didn't, right? Like, our entire lifestyles change.
Right.
But then saying that, and I can say, and being being non-judgmental, non-critical, but then having a goal, like, and because of course my clients are like, well, I do want to lose weight, I do want to be healthy, that's fine, but you don't have to beat yourself up along the way to do it, right?
Exactly.
Because if you were talking to a friend, right? If you came to me, Marcia, and said, oh, I gained so much weight, but I'm about to just start working out, and you were telling me things like, oh, but I'm fat and I'm ugly and I'm this, I'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't say that to yourself, right? I wouldn't even, that's so harsh, right? But these things that we would never say to someone else, or that we would tell our friends not to say about themselves, we say them to ourselves in our mind, and we say them behind those closed doors, right? Even some of the people who, as we see it all the time, we see people, the former Miss America who unfortunately took her own life.
Her life.
See people who appear to be absolutely stunningly beautiful, absolutely happy, absolutely appearances, what you see with your eyes is very
It's
much
not what's
an
here.
illusion. It's not what's
in
here,
your
what's inside
heart,
of you. It's not.
know.
It's not. And so we have to break away from those limiting beliefs and break away from being our own enemies and being our friend, and yeah, reparenting ourselves if we didn't have that when we were younger, and learning how to speak to ourselves. What I tell my clients, talk to yourself. How would you talk to a child?
Exactly.
Right? Because when we talk about our inner child wounds, how would you talk to a child? Would you say that to a child? And if you wouldn't say it to a child, you definitely shouldn't be saying it to yourself.
Correct.
Because you are, you still are a child of someone,
you are
right?
your greatest asset.
Yes,
You are your
absolutely.
greatest asset.
Absolutely.
Some closing remarks to the audience that you would actually, something that you would share with your clients at holistic, wait, is it holistic love? Yeah.
Yes, holistic love.
At holistic love, what would be some closing things that you would say to clients to help encourage them to move in places of self-love and self-care?
I mean, that's a loaded question. I mean, I would start with saying that what I try to remind my clients of, first and foremost, is reminding them that they're worthy, right? They're worthy, that they're enough the way just as they are. And you can be on a journey of healing, you could be on a journey of love, and that journey is never ending. It's a never ending process. And it's not linear. It's not something that, like, there are wounds you heal and then other ones get uncovered and you have to learn how to heal those. But to just really journey in grace, I would say. And that's something my spiritual mentor, Layla Delia, says all the time. Journeying in grace, meaning don't be so hard on yourself as you're doing it, right? Because sometimes even we take our healing journey too serious, our self-love journey too seriously. And it's just like, have grace and compassion with yourself as you learn these new patterns, as you learn these new habits. These are not things you learned overnight. So they're going to take a while to unlearn them. And so just give yourself grace and compassion and be kind to yourself along your journey, and just know this, and know this to be true, that everything is working out for your highest good. Everything that you've experienced in life is working out in your favor, even when it does not feel like it. It is working out for your highest good. And on your journey, there are times that you will experience pain and you will experience discomfort. Find the purpose and find the lesson in it. Find the purpose in your pain and find the lesson in your loss, if that's what you want to call it, or find the lesson in the discomfort, right? And that will always, I can't even say 9 times out of 10, it will always put you on the other side of things.
Absolutely. So tell me this, tell our audience how they can connect with holistic love and yourself on this journey as they begin to open themselves up to self-care and self-love.
So, well, I can be found on all social media. So that's on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I feel like I'm blanking on one. What's another one?
LinkedIn, Twitter.
Not LinkedIn, Twitter. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. My handle name is Starre Cannon LPC. So that's StarreCannonLPC. And again, you can find me on all of those platforms. I am on LinkedIn as well, under Starre Cannon. And my website is holisticlovecommunity.com. And yeah, I think that's it. So I go by my name on most things, but yes, my business name is Holistic Love Community, and that is what I am in the process of building, is community for all the people out there looking to learn how to love themselves harder.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Starre, for
Thank
joining us
you.
here at Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I am super excited. I'm going to text you in a little bit because I think I got something else for us to join in and do.
Okay.
But you all can catch this episode in a couple of Sundays from now. September 4th, actually, this episode is going to air. Grab you a great beverage as you sit down and learn to love on you through self-care and self-love. As always, continue living. Keep joining us here at Authentically Peculiar with Marcia as we learn to live authentically. Take good care.